Okay, so we have begun recording. So I'll begin the presentation. It looks like there's only about 5 or 6 of us here together. I'll start off and then we'll stop for a minute and I'll ask some questions and have you guys introduce yourselves since we're small enough to be able to do that. So my name's Dan McGuire. Um, I'm the executive director of a small nonprofit called Savior. Savior provides funding and resources for teachers to use and create openly licensed content or curriculum. And today, I'm going to show you how a top-rated OER math curriculum that was designed for face-to-face class instruction, that being illustrative mathematics, can be used in both face-to-face learning and digital learning. Or online learning, if you like. GeoGebra, who, if you've been teaching math for a while, you've probably at least heard of, has done a phenomenal job of taking the illustrative mathematics middle school curriculum that was designed for face-to-face instruction, and they've made all of that curriculum entirely digitally accessible with their openly licensed apps. And that enables teachers to see in real time what their students are working on when they're using the digital GeoGebra apps of the illustrative mathematics curriculum. And then we've taken those digital GeoGebra apps and added them to a learning management system. And that learning management system can then be downloaded and uploaded to any of the major LMSs currently in use today. What that does is that provides the entire illustrative mathematics curriculum in a digital format to anybody who wants to upload that content. Now, the illustrative mathematics curriculum is a problem-based curriculum, and it's designed to address the content and practice standards and to foster learning for all students. And according to Ed Reports, which is an independent nonprofit that reviews K-12 instructional materials, the illustrative mathematics middle school math curriculum met all of their expectations for focus, coherence, rigor, mathematical practices, and usability. And important to note here is that the illustrative mathematics guides for teachers stress the necessity for students to work in groups to solve problems and construct arguments. So using the GeoGebra apps within an LMS is the way to significantly increase the options which are available for both teachers and students to communicate with each other about the math content. Now, before we take a look at what the courses look like in an LMS, a few more reasons why it's a good idea to use this digital content within an LMS. The LMS course makes it easier to access the GeoGebra apps. They're right there in the school's LMS. The learning management system makes it easier to add any other materials in addition to the illustrative mathematics content that you want to add in. There's a structure for doing that, and it's all within the same platform that students are familiar with. The LMS is, of course, available in various languages. And an LMS makes it easier for students to keep track of what they're doing, which is especially important in digital learning, which they may not be familiar with. The LMS does a lot of that for them. And again, as I mentioned previously, the LMS provides more ways for students and teachers to communicate, and then for students to communicate with each other. There are, again, importantly, multiple types of assessments available in the LMS. And of course, both the learning management systems and GeoGebra are available and can be used with mobile devices, which increases their utility and accessibility for lots of students. Now, before we take a look at the course, let's consider one of the things that teachers are facing when they transition to digital learning, whether it's either online or face-to-face. Teachers are trying to figure out the best way to give quick formative feedback and ask questions and share student responses. Whether online or in a digital enabled classroom, it's important to make it easy for students to communicate with each other and their teacher. So the GeoGebra Classroom app allows the teacher to virtually look over the shoulder of their students as they're working on the illustrative mathematics problems in the GeoGebra app. That's true whether it's online or in a face-to-face classroom where the students are working on devices. And then the learning management system adds even more communication capabilities between students and teachers. And it also provides, as I said, multiple ways to assess that learning. And you're going to notice in the course, and I'll point it out to you, that we have only used assignments and discussions in the basic setup to the course. And the reason we're doing that is because we want to minimize the cognitive load of both teachers and students as they're taking on, for most of them, what will be new digital learning. But with just a discussion, it's possible to make more assignments that are easy to turn in and easy for teachers to grade and comment on. Now, of course, when you're using LMS, you can also use any of the other web apps that you may like. But we suggest that you use the discussion in the LMS to as a place for students to share with you, the teacher, and their classmates what they learn when they go to other sites. It's a way to organize the learning and to share it and archive it. Use the LMS to keep track of everything. After all, an LMS is a learning management system. And I think importantly, I'll stress the ability of the LMS to provide a way for you to stay in touch with your students. You can easily initiate a conversation privately or otherwise using the LMS. So let's take a look at what that looks like when it's in an LMS course, what the apps look like. This is the first lesson in, I'm going to move the pictures over here. This is the first lesson in the first unit of the grade 8 curriculum. Now, what I'll do is I'll show you briefly how these are all organized. There are 9 units in each grade. So we have created a separate course for each unit. And that's true in all 3 grades 6, 7, and 8. Now, once you've created all of this content in an LMS, it's possible then for you as the teacher to just use only what you want to use. I mean, all of the content and all of the links are there. You, of course, don't have to use them, and you can turn them off or delete them as you wish. But this provides an access point to the illustrative mathematics curriculum for anybody on the planet that wants to use it. And it's, of course, all free. So let's look at the components of each of the units within the LMS. Of course, we've got a teacher README page, which provides some suggestions that we've made that teachers might want to do to modify the content. Now, being able to modify the content is really crucial. These courses are being used in a Schoology LMS in in the large California districts. And when I was chatting one day with the district math leader, I said, this can save the district a lot of money, enormous sums of money if they use it for everybody. And his response to me was, Dan, we don't care about the money. What we care about is being able to modify the curriculum. And of course, the crucial thing is that, and districts are coming to realize, is the need to modify content to meet all of the diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility requirements for everyone. When you have an OER licensed content and it's digital, that becomes a lot easier. All right. And what we've created here is links to all of the teacher materials in the unit. And of course, Illustrative Mathematics has done a phenomenal job of providing all kinds of content that is very useful for teachers as they're preparing a lesson. This is the background material for a teacher for just one lesson. It includes a narrative, links to the standards, glossary items, and various other pages that can be worksheets. Lots of resources. There's also a link to parent materials or family materials for each unit. And of course, this is very useful. It provides that general information that is so useful for families to know what their students are learning. I remember when my kids were using in middle school, it had been a few years since I had been in a middle school math room, and it was really useful to know what they were approaching, what they approached that the curriculum and the teacher was using. So let's go back to the course here. And then the other thing that we've included in each of the units is an announcements discussion. This is the place where teachers can provide that information and the links to all of the things that the central office asks you to communicate with your students. And there's a never-ending stream of that, as you know. We've also included a specific discussion, which we call the Talk to Your Teacher discussion. This one is set up so that each of the discussions are private between each student and the teacher. Again, this is possibly redundant, but because everybody has email and different chat programs, but this provides a communication channel directly within the math curriculum to communicate for teachers and students to communicate with each other. You don't have to use it, but it's there. We've also included a discussion, which we call the Talk to Your Classmates discussion. This one is set up so that students can create their own topics for discussions, which enables students to share whatever they might want to share. Any kind of media can be shared with each other. And of course, this is to be used at under the guidelines of the classroom in the school, which I'm sure vary depending upon where you're at. But we've included this as something that you can use. It's of course optional how you want to use it, or whether or not you want to use it at all. There's an attributions page, which includes the references to where the source materials for all of the content is. Most of it's in Illustrative Mathematics or GeoGebra. Now let's moving down to the more strictly mathematical content. In each lesson, there is in Illustrative Mathematics, lesson activities and practice activities. So we've created a link to the GeoGebra versions of that those activities. And again, you can see that, I'll move this again, when in the GeoGebra apps, there's ways for students to manipulate data to provide specific answers, and to then create their own constructions as they want. Now, students are able to monitor what students are doing in these digital apps, whether they're in a video conferencing Zoom classroom or in a face-to-face classroom when students are working with the curriculum on their own devices. Now, there's links to both of the lesson activities and the practice activities. And then we've created placeholders for an assignment turn in and for a lesson discussion that corresponds with the lesson activities and the practice activities. Again, this is a starter construction, if you will, for the course. Teachers are able to delete these, to modify these, to add in whatever they want. But we've created these placeholder activities, which we think are useful to get teachers started. Now, I'm going to pause here for a minute just to ask if there's any questions. You should be able to unmute yourselves if you have anything. One of the ways to think about this is that to use the GeoGebra apps as the synchronous communication and instruction for students, and use the LMS as the asynchronous or the extension of the classroom. All right, let me give you an example of what a discussion in an LMS looks like. So this is, we're moving over to 7th grade. The first lesson in the 7th grade curriculum in the first unit asks students to first manipulate some shapes and to engage with the concept of scale. So the students are presented with various images of the letter F, and they're asked to look at them and comment on them, and to say what's different about them. Looking at the various aspects of scale. And then students are asked to create a version of the letter F that's scaled. And for instance, I'll just show you what that lesson is very quickly. Got to jump over to the 7th grade unit. So 7th grade, unit 1, and then here's the lesson activity. So if we click into that, so here's where the students are manipulating the various images to see what are the components of scale. And then they look at the various shapes of F, and then students are asked to draw their own scaled version of F using the tools in the GeoGebra app. So students can then draw something like this. I'm not sure if this is to scale or not, but then students take a screenshot of that and then paste that into the discussion in the LMS. So, and then they can share it with each other. That's what's going on in this example that I'm showing you here. So um, this is the way to grade that activity. And here's the rubric for grading that activity. First, it's connected to um, the the Common Core standard for that. And we can give them points for the drawing, points for their explanation, points for how they're communicating with their classmates. Notice in this one that we've put in more points for the replies than for the explanations and drawings, and then points for the written communication. Of course, that's all up to the teacher, all up to you, how you want to structure the value and the feedback. And then here's what it looks like when students share with each other. So for instance, um, Bill here here's my drawing of the scale graph. So he's done it. He's created a PDF, which students can create either PDFs or JPEGs, whatever they want. So this is what Bill did. All right, you can see that. And then Ted took a look at what Bill did, and he said, Bill, you made a very neat drawing. I would say you should check, though, the length of the short horizontal part of F. All right. Bill then does that and says, thanks, Ted. I see that I made the short horizontal line too long. I also noticed that the short horizontal line should be lower. It should be equal distance from the top to the bottom. So what we have here is an example of students communicating with each other about a math construction using mathematical language. Now, can be utilized in any of the problems, because that's what pretty much almost all of the activities within GeoGebra ask students to create something and then share it with their classmates and talk about what's right or wrong or what's a better way to do that. Again, if then as a teacher, if I want to grade that, here's where I bring up the rubric specific to um, Bill, and I can give him the points. I can change those points as I want to, and then save them. So when we go back, I got to move this to do that. All right. Now we can just move on then to the next student and grade Ted's response. So here's what Ted created, and Mara is the student that responded to his work. So again, we're scoring what Ted did similarly, and again we save that. But what we have here is a fairly thorough way for students to communicate with each other, and then to comment on each other's work, and then for the teacher to make comments on that student work and their communication. And this is where the beauty of and the art of teaching comes in, really. How you construct those rubrics and the kind of feedback that's given, that's what's really important. Any questions while I'm on this Schoology site? This is what a discussion would look like in Schoology. It's pretty much the same in Moodle or Canvas or D2L. All right, so one of the things I'll point out here is that students are going to need ways, they're going to need some practice in learning how to do that effective communication with each other, how to use mathematical language appropriately, and how to make their comments more practical. I think my experience has been that students are usually pretty generous with each other. I know Seth can comment on that because you've got a lot of experience with that. I think that they're usually more generous even than teachers would be, but of course that varies. I think using the rubrics and marking guides that are available in the LMS is really a great way to structure that. But it really provides a lot of capabilities. And it's, of course, a way to give students to go to the board and show what they know, but that we're doing it digitally now. And of course, that's important to be able to have students show off what they're doing. Again, this is going to vary by students, but encouraging this is a great teaching activity. Now, I'll summarize here. I've just shown you the discussion, and I think a discussion provides these three components, which are necessary for any course, really, whether it's digital or face-to-face. But it provides a way to encourage student self-efficacy. It gives them a greater sense of belonging because they're able to communicate with each other, and with the teacher, they're able to create their own work and share it, which again then increases the value of the curriculum. And that's what really teaching is all about. I think we could say that teaching and learning is essentially about sharing, and the GeoGebra apps used within an LMS are a way to increase the ability to share. So I think that's about all I have today. This is the link to a page on our website where you can get usernames and passwords. It's also in the chat if you want to just copy it there. But on this page, you can get a link to the Moodle LMS with some usernames and passwords, which will enable you to log into a course similar to the ones I just showed you. And all of these course files are available to be downloaded and then uploaded into your LMS. As an example, one of the district I mentioned in California, when it took them, there was one district instructional designer. It took her 40 minutes to load the entire middle school curriculum into their Schoology. So that's all it took. And then in 40 minutes, she sent out an email saying, which schools do you want me to push this to? So it was that quick as far as delivering curriculum, and a very powerful curriculum. Of course, I'm always available for any questions or discussions that you might have. Here's my Twitter and my email. Again, that's it for me. What other questions do you have? We still have a few minutes left here. Seth, do you want to add anything? Being an experienced online teacher.
I don't have anything to add, but I will ask a question. I went to the link that you provided on this slide, and I'm looking at it now. And you say MoodleNet, you can go there and just download the entire LMS. Is that the preferred way, or then you have 3 users?
Okay, yeah, good question.
Can you maybe go to that page and demonstrate that a little bit?
Yeah, first I should say MoodleNet is currently under construction. They're modifying their content, so you can't download the courses from MoodleNet, and we're in the process of putting them up all on our site. So if you want to download them, you can download them from the Savior site. But so if we go to this site, well, I'm already logged in, so it just takes me to the course. But
maybe you could log out and,
all right,
and log in as one of these sample users.
You bet. I
and
can do that.
Does it matter if more than one person logs in
No.
as the same sample user at the same time?
No.
Okay.
So if I go to this page now and I'm not logged in, let's see, one of them is, I'll cheat here, MNDOL, and then the password for that is exclamation point, capital M, NDOL. Let's see if I type that correctly. Nope. MNDOL 13. Let's try that. And then I type in here, exclamation point, capital MNDOL 13. There, that got me in as Minnesota Digital Online Learner number 13. And it took me to that 8th grade unit that I was just showing you.
Can we also access the 6th and 7th grade through this
Let me
user?
see. No, we can't here. That I don't have those sample users all logged into the 6th grade and 7th grade content. That would mean I need to create um, user profiles in all of those courses. If you want to see them, I'll give you those, but I don't have those set up as just default trials. Anybody that wants to see it, it only takes me a few minutes to set that up. Just send me a note and I'll send those back to you. That's something we could do, is create enroll those sample users in all of the courses. That's just something that it's probably a good idea to do, but we just haven't done it yet. Lisa, how about you? What do you think?
I teach in Texas. Or do you have the TEKS aligned to the material? Do you know? Or is it just Common Core standards?
Well, the Illustrative Mathematics, I don't think has created a specific cross-reference from Common Core to TEKS yet. From what I know, it's just a matter of paperwork, or it's a matter of adjusting the spreadsheet. I don't think from what I've looked at, there's not much difference, except there's a few numbers different. We haven't, and I don't think Illustrative Mathematics has either created a specific table for the TEKS. I do think it's available within Schoology. So which LMS do you use?
No, we're Google Classroom.
Well, okay. So you don't need to use, well, Google Classroom provides you with a lot of these capabilities, but it just doesn't have all of the organization and feedback and structural components that a LMS does. But you can still use it with, of course, Google Classroom. And I'm not sure if Google Classroom correlates with, do they have an automatic correlation to standards?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, I don't think so. Well, that would be I think that if you're interested in correlating activity to the standards, that would be a good reason to use the LMS, because certainly if you're using Schoology, it's built in. Within Moodle, it has to be created by each district, but it's not a big thing to do. It's easy to do. Okay. But again, go ahead.
Okay, that's just going to say thank you.
Oh, okay. You bet. Yeah, the Moodle leaves all of the standards correlation up to the user. And that's probably because Moodle is a global LMS, so it's used all over the planet. And so the TEKS standards aren't going to make sense maybe in South Asia, but so which is where Moodle is used a lot. But And Japan and China are also now using Moodle really extensively. So, and of course they have their own set of standards. Um, my take on that is, well, again, it's just a matter of, adjusting the spreadsheet. I think mathematics standards are fairly similar. Of course, if you get five middle school math teachers, you can probably get an argument about which standards you should teach first. I don't know. Uh, what do you think, Seth? Are the standards fairly useful or not? I don't. You're not a big standards
Are
fan.
what standards fairly useful?
Well, the Common Core or
Well, every school district or state department has sets of standards that they require teachers to abide by.
right.
So I mean, that's the life that we're in, and so we do have to pay attention to those standards.
Yeah. And so you have the ability, no matter which district you're in, to correlate those with these activities.
Sometimes it's easier if someone else has done the correlation rather
Well, of
than the
course.
individual teacher. Well,
Sure.
I mean, it may be an easy task if someone were to set about it. It's quite time consuming. And it would be helpful if that correlation had been done, and it probably has somewhere. But the question is, I just did a little searching while you were talking, and I couldn't find any correlation between the Texas standards and the Common Core. But I'm sure somebody's done it. I would think.
Yeah, and yeah, it would be nice if that were done. I would expect that at some point that will be done. I mean, certainly the capability is there. We have the technology to do it. And as you said, somebody either has done it or will do it. And it's just a matter of time before we start sharing. If you give me a few dollars, I can hire somebody to do that.
Well, I'm sure the major publishers have done it because they have to write books for the Texas audience as well as other states. And so somewhere in their documents, I'm sure there are correlations between Common Core and Texas.
And that may be true with illustrative mathematics. I'm not sure. Or Kendall Hunt. That's something I could check on, whether or not they've done that. But it's an excellent point. And, being able to grade the activities according to whatever standards you use, I think is the key. And that's one of the beauties of using it within an LMS, that it makes that a lot easier, and certainly makes reporting of that activity from a school or a district level, it makes that's going to help a lot. That's one of the problems I think with Google Classroom, is that when you try to do any kind of analysis of what has happened in the various classrooms throughout your district, depending upon how big the district is, that gets pretty cumbersome. You have a pretty significant set of folders that you need to deal with. And anyway, how big is your district, Lisa?
I teach in the middle school, and we have about 350 in total district, 1,500 total.
Okay. But that's still a big bunch. Well, I think we're about up to the time limit when we were allotted for this presentation. Again, I will say again, contact me if you have further questions, or if we can be useful. If you want to see any of these specific grade levels or units within grade levels, let me know. I can also talk a little bit about Google Classroom, although most of our work has been focused on using within the LMS, but I do know that the GeoGebra apps work very nicely within Google Classroom. There are some videos on the GeoGebra site which show you how to set up the apps in a Google Classroom, and so that's easy to do. And it works pretty seamlessly with Google Classroom. You just don't have the added communication assessment capabilities and tracking capabilities. Go ahead,
Dan,
Lisa.
could you pull up this slide again that shows the logins, please?
Yes.
And I know you said you were going to record, but I don't see the record button going. So I'm thinking maybe it didn't get recorded.
Oh, it said it was.
But my end doesn't show, but yours might.
Well, if it doesn't, I'll make a recording without all your comments on it. So here's the page where you can log in to try it, sabier.org/try it.
I
can
put that
copy that.
link in the chat.
What's that?
I put that link in the chat.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Seth. Do you see it in the chat, Lisa?
Yes. And Seth, have you used some of the illustrative math before?
I have. I'm a middle school teacher, and I teach in an online environment. I've done that for the past 6 years. And what I've done is I have just taken content from the materials and integrated it into the work that I'm doing. So I haven't used any of these pre-built or built by other organizations. I've just, I've taken the print materials and then made them into my own presentation.
Okay, thank you.
They're very good. Their curriculum is very strong.
Well, I'll have 2 classes. I'm only a part-time teacher, and I have 2 classes of 7th grade remediation, and then I'll have 8th graders who will be taking a geometry class prior to as they take algebra at the same time.
The Illustrative Mathematics has a high school curriculum as well, so there's a geometry course. If you can look at that for content.
What I really do is fill in. They go from 7th grade math to algebra, so I fill in a lot of the 8th grade geometry that they don't have before they go to high school.
Thanks. What I was going to say is that GeoGebra, I think you said this, has created the apps for all of the high school curriculum as well. And one way to maybe start with this, if you're using Google Classroom, is just provide links to the students for those apps in the GeoGebra content and let them practice with it and let them try it and see how it works. And you can create that online classroom within the GeoGebra app. There's a little video when you first log into the GeoGebra apps, it'll show you how to do that. And then you can, then that way you can monitor what the students are doing while they're working on the GeoGebra apps. And then whatever work one of the beauties of using it with Google Classroom is that you can save the student work in Google Classroom, and they just click save the way they would do it with any other activity within Google Classroom. So that works pretty well. Okay, well, I'll stop the sharing and the recording if it is going. Yeah, it says it's recording, so I'm going to stop the recording now.